All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sam Weil, and some of you know me as a sales rep that I work with many of you guys at Advanced Turf Solutions. I'm also the turf adjunct at Tri-C Community College, and so I guess I call myself the Tri-C Turf guy. And this morning I wanted to geek out a little bit for those of you guys that know me, I can sometimes geek out on turf. And so this morning I wanted to take a minute to geek out a little bit on snow mold. So today is March 1st, 2021. And if you live up here in Northeast Ohio, you know that we just came out of a pretty cold period with prolonged snowfall. And like many of you might expect, you're going to go out there and probably see some snow mold. And I was actually out with the kids this weekend, taking advantage of the nice weather in the backyard. And probably in less than 5 minutes of pushing on the swing set, I was able to find a couple of different kinds of snow mold in my backyard, which isn't a surprise because I've got tall fescue, and that one is prone to getting snow mold because of the growth habit and the wider blades. So anyways, there's three different types. We don't always see most of these. In fact, the last few winters have been on the relatively mild side. So, we don't normally see all three of these present, or even two out of the three of these. But this year, we were either fortunate or unfortunate enough that we actually have at least two of them going, and I would suspect the third one's there also. So we have three different types of snow mold available to us. We don't always see all of them. The most common one that we see in pretty much any given year, we're probably going to see this in Northeast Ohio, is pink snow mold. It's also called microdochium patch, but causal agent on that one is microdochium navale. And as the name suggests, it's usually pretty easy to pick out because we see the pink growth on that, the pink mycelial growth on that fungus. That one actually, if you went outside right now, I guarantee you're going to find it. It's going to be active. So that one's there. The other one that's actually active right now is gray snow mold. And this is a little deceiving. There's really two types of snow mold. There's the pink snow mold and the gray snow mold. Gray snow mold kind of, it can be divided up into a couple of different types. So there's a couple different causal agents. So primarily it's caused by Typhula incarnata. But there's also another variant called Typhula ischeriensis. Both of these causal agents can cause gray snow mold. The difference is that the Typhula ischeriensis has a different fruiting body structure than the gray snow mold. Both of them will produce sclerotia. The speckled snow mold, which is caused by Typhula ischeriensis specifically, will have a little bit different structure. We'll talk about in a minute. Typically, these only cause cosmetic damage. However, if we have severe infections, it can stunt growth, could possibly kill the grass as well, especially if these structures start getting down into the deeper down on the stem and the crown. We can actually see some dieback. So this is a year that, because we did have a period of prolonged snowfall, it is possible that we could see some damage lingering into the spring that doesn't come back. So the first one, the most common one that we run into pretty much anywhere here in northern Ohio, is the pink snow mold or microdochium patch. Again, the causal agent on that is microdochium navale. The good thing, or the important thing to know, is the current weather and environmental conditions are perfect. So the reason that I want to talk about the snow molds is, two things are going on. Number one, we came out of a period where we had, I'd say, several weeks of consistent snow cover. We had colder temperatures. I know when I looked at Fox 8 the other day, I think we had it wasn't a severely cold winter, Wasn't like polar vortex, but it was on the cool side. We didn't have very many days above 40 or even 50 degrees. So I'm sure for many of you, this weekend with the warmer weather was a welcomed sight because we have not seen too much of that most of this winter. It wasn't horribly cold, but overall the temperatures were below average. So, we had that. And then, in addition to that, we had all that heavy rain this weekend. So when you figure all the snow melt, we were already dealing with some pretty saturated soil and turf conditions. And then you add in all the rainfall that we just got on top of it. So if you can imagine that, these are pretty good conditions for snow mold to be active and go into town on these lawns. So, Microdochium patch doesn't need a lot of snow to be active. It actually doesn't need any snow at all. This one, if we have cooler temperatures and prolonged moisture in the turf canopy, that's all it really needs. So it's not uncommon to see this one actively growing, even in conditions right now. In fact, I just took some of these pictures were from this morning. And you can actually see active mycelial growth in my backyard. This one does not need snow cover to be active. Because of that, it can be active in late fall. It can actually also be active in the springtime, like right now going into spring, if the temperatures and weather are favorable. So if we end up having a cool, wet spring, and some of you may have seen this in the past up here in the Cleveland area that, if we get into one of those cool, wet spring patterns, it's not uncommon to go out and possibly find this growing on a lawn even in May, if the weather is favorable. And that's because, again, if we have lush turf, if we have moisture available, if the temperatures are anywhere from, say, near freezing up to as high as 65 degrees, this pathogen can be active. Most of the time, once we get into the warmer weather, it's dormant. But as long as the weather is favorable, this pathogen can become active. Typically doesn't become active until we see temperatures in, say, that 35 to 45 degree range. But again, in springtime, if it is, if we have a heavy snow mold season, this one could continue to be active in lawns up until we see about 65, 70 degrees. So just keep that in mind. The next one, again, this one we don't see as often. It's much more common if you go up into, say, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, New York State, places further north. This is gray snow mold. It's also called Typhia blight. And this disease, this one likes colder weather. So the winter, this cool period that we had that we just came out of, this one actually likes the colder weather. Consistently in that 30 to 45 degree range. It can be active in late fall if weather and temperatures are favorable. So if we do get a favorable period going into wintertime, this one can get active, which would cause it to be more severe coming out of winter. It's most severe when temperatures under the snow cover stay between 32 and 36 degrees Fahrenheit. So again, this period that we just came out of where we had the colder air temperatures combined with that prolonged snow cover, it does create a favorable environment for this disease to be active under the snow. It is favored by prolonged periods of continuous snow cover, like I said. If you find it, as I did in my yard, you're going to see these tan, almost kind of like orangish tan colored sclerotia becoming visible. These actually show up right when the snow is melting. So if you were to go out onto a lawn right now, you might actually see these. So that's one way that you know that you're dealing with Typhia blight versus, say, Microdochium patch, other than that pink color. You're going to see these sclerotia all over. And like I said, they were active. These pictures I took this weekend. So you're going to see these fruiting bodies out there on the grass right now. So the other one, again, I said this earlier, this one is a type of gray snow mold. It's called speckled snow mold. Basically, again, it's a gray snow mold. The causal agent is the Typhula ischeriensis versus Typhula incarnata. So again, both of these will cause gray snow mold. Both of these are gray snow mold. So they share all the same kind of, profiles, the temperature, weather conditions, snow cover. The difference between the two is the speckled snow mold. The fruiting body, those sclerotia that are going to be present on the leaf blades and stems, are going to appear as a dark brown or black color versus the tan. And if you look at that picture to the left, you can see the difference between the two. So again, the Typhula ischeriensis would be the darker ones above, and then your Typhula incarnata would be the sclerotia down below. So I haven't found this one yet, but I'm sure it's out there. So besides the weather, what else contributes to snow mold? Well, for starters, if we have lush growth from over-fertilizing in the fall, or if we get a period of warmer weather where we have some surge growth from a fall warm spell, that can create favorable conditions for snow mold over the winter. The other thing that often can happen is we might, especially up here in Northeast Ohio with the lake moderating things, we have a little bit later growing period up here than you would have in Central Ohio down around Columbus. So sometimes what can happen is we have an early onset of winter where we start getting these snows, especially lake effect snows, in November and December, before the turf actually has a chance to harden off going into the winter. So that can create problems. Also, a higher height of cut. So when we have our turf maintained at 3 or 4 inches in height, or if it's even possibly taller from some late season surge growth, again, having that blade surface area on the grass is really going to contribute to whether or not you get snow mold and how bad it is. Another factor is excessive thatch. So thatch is kind of an interesting thing. Some grasses produce more thatch than others. Some varieties produce more thatch than others. But anything that's contributing to excessive thatch, so if you're mulching grass clippings in season, or if you have a type of grass that's prone to creating thatch, that thatch is going to create an environment where these fungal pathogens can hunker down over the summer and basically stay in there and be ready and waiting for when the conditions are favorable. Another thing that can cause or contribute to snow mold development is poor drainage and air circulation. So again, if you can imagine under snow cover, you're not going to have much drainage. You're not going to have much air circulation under there. But, even in general, if we have periods where we have cool, damp weather and there isn't a whole lot of air movement around and that ground is saturated, that's going to promote the disease. And your wider bladed turf varieties. So usually fine fescues don't get snow mold, but anything that's got any kind of blade surface area on it, so your bent grasses, ryegrass, Kentucky bluegrass, tall fescue, those are all going to be prone to getting snow mold. Between all of those, I would say Kentucky bluegrass and tall fescue are going to be the most prone, and actually tall fescue is very susceptible to it. Please don't rake me. One of the things that I often see going on, and one of the questions I keep getting asked every year is, what do we do when we see this snow mold out there? And I think that, it can be unsightly, and it can cause a lot of homeowners or other people in our industry to want to go out there and do something to get that, taken care of. If you don't know what you're doing, I wouldn't do anything. So the idea here, if you're going out and raking snow mold, I would only rake it very, very lightly. My general recommendation to most people is not to do it at all. Usually the damage from snow mold is cosmetic. So really the only thing that the raking is going to do to benefit it is maybe to open that up again. If we think about moisture and air circulation, will open that up and allow that organic matter, that dead organic matter in there, to dry out and begin decomposing. Usually, like I said, I would recommend to leave it alone, because if you don't know what you're doing and you rake it too aggressively, you're actually going to damage the crowns down at the soil level, because with all the grass blades and stems killed back to the crown, there isn't much protection for that tender crown down there at the soil level, and you risk damaging it and killing it. So I would recommend giving the turf time to grow out in the spring before attempting to fix it. If this is a recurrent problem, or you have a consumer or a customer that's very, itchy about doing something about this, I would maybe offer or consider applying a fungicide in late winter. So right now, because we had this little warm up and we had the snow melt off, this would be an ideal time to come in and actually do a curative treatment. The other thing that we want to look at in season to manage snow mold or prevent it if we can is we're going to want to manage thatch. So we can do that through aeration. We can also do it through dethatching. But again, we don't want to do that here in the spring, because we want to give that turf a chance to recover from the damage from the disease. So if we go in and dethatch right now, we're going to do more harm than good. You want to use organic or organic-based fertilizers. So these really help to increase populations of beneficial microbes in the soil. These beneficial microbes are going to do two things. They're going to outcompete these pathogens for resources. They're also going to help break down that thatch a little faster, so we don't get that thatch buildup in the lawn. We want to avoid over-fertilizing in the late fall. Typically in the fall, when we're doing what we would call a winterizer application, these are great for a lawn. They really do help promote green up. So, in a year like a snow mold year, that late winterizer application is going to be a benefit to help get this grass kicking and growing going into the spring. However, it's a balance. We don't want to contribute to excessive growth by over fertilizing. And typically you don't need more than maybe half a pound of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet. And I would really gauge it based on when you did your prior application, because if the grass is still looking pretty good, from that previous application mid-fall, you may not want to go in there and do that winterizer application. Chances are it's probably healthy enough that it's going to carry through the winter just fine and green up in the spring just fine. So keep that in mind. Lower the height of cut when you're mowing. So grass that's mowed like in a lawn setting at 3 or 4 inches at height, or athletic fields, or maybe you let them go in the fall just to let them recover from play. You're really going to want to take that height of cut down on them. You can do it incrementally, but I would definitely recommend lowering the height of cut. I mean, a lot of grasses in a lawn setting are able to be mowed down to, anywhere down from 1.5 inches to 2.5 inches. So idea is just to keep it clean and keep that height of cut down, just so you don't have a lot of excessive growth going into the winter, because the longer blades of grass and the thicker blades of grass are going to create real estate for that fungus to get going. So in essence, what you're doing is you're removing opportunity for that fungus to hunker down on the grass blade and get going in the wintertime. And along those lines, if we have a late fall warm spell that causes some surge growth, unfortunately, you may want to bring that mower back out and go out and hit it again just to clean it off. I have pictures of my yard, for example. I had that very thing happen here late this last fall. We did still have some decent growth. I was lazy, didn't want to go out, give it another cut, let it go. I kind of knew that I was running the risk, and so we have snow mold all over the yard at the Weil House this spring. So another tool that we have in the toolbox, I don't see this one used too often, but we do have the ability to put fungicides down. I would definitely consider this if you have lawns that are prone to getting snow mold. I wouldn't necessarily say you should offer this across the board. Most customers probably aren't going to pay for it. They tend to be more expensive. And if the grass is going to recover fine on its own, what's the point? So, but like I said, you may have some situations where this is a recurrent problem. Maybe it's a particularly thatchy lawn, or it's a tall fescue lawn that's prone to getting this every year. So if it's a recurrent problem, you may want to consider using fungicides, both preventatively and curatively, to help you manage this and keep it from being too big of a problem. Some of the fungicides that are labeled for turf, and especially for residential turf, we don't get a whole lot of options. The old standard on turf used to be a product called PCMB, or pentachloronitrobenzene. That product is only available for use on golf courses, so we cannot use that in a residential or even in a commercial turf setting. But there are some fungicides that we have available that are effective. Some of these would be your DMIs, like propiconazole, myclobutanil, or Trinity, which is a BASF product. Those are your DMI type fungicides. Another one, a different class of fungicide that can also be beneficial, is a product called thiophanate methyl. The old trade name on that is Cleary's 3336. Again, thiophanate methyl can be a beneficial tool for managing snow mold. And then the other category would be your strobilurin. So this would be things like azoxystrobin, which is Heritage, or Insignia. There's a few others out there, but these are the two of note that are relatively economical and relatively available for the home lawn use for commercial applicators. And then the other one that I wanted to hit on too, this is a relative newcomer from BASF. So Lexicon Zemplar. So Zemplar would actually be it's a newer fungicide that's come out from BASF. It actually is a component in Lexicon, so that's why I have both of those listed there. Lexicon would be a combination of, I believe it's Insignia and then the Zemplar. And then there's also Zemplar by itself, and both of those are effective. It is going to be a more expensive product, but it does have decent efficacy on snow molds. The other thing that I should mention too with these is, because it is wintertime, because the turf isn't actually growing, this is probably something that you're going to go out and spray versus doing a granular application. I don't think the granulars are going to really help in this situation. So I'd probably stick to spraying, and obviously you're going to need it to be above freezing to go out and do that. So keep that in mind if you're planning on doing any of this. And as always, if you guys have any questions, get a hold of me. You can call me, you can text me, you can email me. So I've got both emails up there, both at my Tri-C email and my Advanced Turf email if you do want to get a hold of me. And thanks, and I'll wrap it up here. So if you have any questions, get a hold of me. Now I'll talk to you later.